Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are back in Japan, as you might be able to tell from the change in background, and so over the next few videos we're going to be looking at some Japanese beers, which is always quite exciting. So I hope you guys enjoy this latest installment of the Japanese mini-series, as I always call it. But for the review today, we are going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. These guys are another relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up a very, very good reputation for themselves in that short time. We've had a couple of different styles from them, but I would say they're most definitely best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases from what I understand. It's a style that we have had from this brewery before and one that we know they can do very, very well, and it was recommended to me by someone who I really trust when it comes to the Japanese beer scene. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what this one has in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head a little bit to the north of me here in Osaka up to Aichi Prefecture and Nagoya City. We're going to go out to the east of Nagoya though to a place called Nagakuta, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Totopia Brewery. So this particular beer is called Lightningphobia. Pretty much all of the Totopia beers have phobia in their name for some reason. I'm not quite sure why they decided on that, but this one comes in at 6.5% ABV, and it's another New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is yet another beer that I picked up at the wonderful liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi Aichi here in Osaka. Lovely little beer shop run by Koji along with his daughter Rika, who's doing most of the work these days because Koji's getting a little bit older. But this place actually started out as Koji's grandfather's soy sauce factory, if I'm not mistaken, and it's passed down the generations. And these days it's a beer shop. They've got a great selection of Japanese stuff as well as things from further afield, so I do recommend that you take the train journey and you go and visit it if you get the chance to come and visit Osaka. Really great place and lovely people behind it, of course. But yeah, another New England hazy IPA from Totopia Brewery. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Totopia Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things, and that is of course being added to really quite regularly because I'm based out here in Asia these days. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Totopia Brewery once again then. So, Totopia Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Nagakuta in Aichi Prefecture, just out to the east of Nagoya City, which is of course one of the biggest cities in Japan, I think number 4 if I'm not mistaken. But the brewery was founded back in 2022, and it's the latest venture of the team behind Beer Pub Brick Lane in Nagoya. So Beer Pub Brick Lane was founded back in 2014 by Junya Morita along with his wife Akiko and 3 other friends. But this has become a really well-known beer and burger spot in the city. But the following year they started the Nagoya Craft Beer Map, and they started market research in the US as well in order to create their own import company, which began importing American beers to Japan in 2017. But they then opened up their own beer shop, which is known as Used Like New Beer, in 2018, and this also acts as a sandwich shop as well. So I think I need to go to Nagoya and check out both of these places actually. That's something we need to do for an out and about video. That would be quite fun. But at this point, they wanted to get into brewing their own beer, and so they started planning to form their own brewery. So the name Totopia was chosen using a combination of the Japanese word toto, which means like precious, valuable, revered, and also the English word utopia, and everybody should know what that means. But the location of the brewery had originally been decided as Seto City, but this had to be changed quite suddenly, and so they found the current plot of 600 square metres in Nagakuta, which, as I said, is out to the east of Nagoya City, and the brewery released their first beers during the second half of 2022. They plan to focus on using local ingredients wherever possible, and they're actually harvesting their own hops and things like this too, which is quite interesting. But as of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 115 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. The majority of their beers, from what I've seen, have been like New England hazy IPAs, but they've done a few sour IPAs, and I think they might have done a few kind of more fruity and smoothie sours and things like that as well. So yeah, I do hope that we see a few more styles from Totopia going forward. Some West Coast IPAs and some stouts and things like this could be quite interesting. But yeah, for the moment they're focusing mainly on different kinds of IPAs and things like that, which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because, you know, people really like IPAs. It's a very popular style, and they want to get their name known a little bit more before they start trying some more experimental stuff. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Totopia Brewery for the moment. Definitely an up-and-coming Japanese brewery that you should check out if you get the chance, so yeah, make sure that you do. But yeah, if you want to learn more about this brewery, check out the brewery link in the video description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages as well to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done thus far, and no doubt there will be more as time goes on. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So like I said to you earlier, this one is 6.5% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. It's a half-litre can, incidentally. I believe this one cost me 1,400 Japanese yen, which is about 70 Hong Kong dollars, about £7 sterling. Maybe like, you know, €7.50, €8, something like that, and about $8.50 American. So that gives you a rough idea of the price. Beer has actually gone up a little bit in price here in Japan, but that kind of makes sense because the Japanese yen is pretty weak just now. So coming to Japan as a tourist is actually very cheap, and this is still cheaper than you would pay for this beer in Hong Kong, actually. So yeah, a little bit pricey from the Japanese perspective, but still, for me coming in from Hong Kong, it's actually a bit cheaper. But yeah, as I said, 6.5% New England Hazy IPA. This one contains Citra, Nelson Sauvin and Riwaka, all three hops we know quite well. Citra, American, 14% alpha acid. It's going to give you that lovely big kind of juicy soft mango note in a New England IPA, and it's probably also going to show you a little bit of lemon lime as well. Nelson Sauvin, 16% alpha acid, New Zealand hop, that big white green grapey character. Riwaka, if I remember correctly, is quite low in alpha acid, about 6 to 8% if I'm not mistaken. New Zealand hop again, and it gives you quite a lot of like pineapple and apricots and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. Riwaka is quite an interesting one. I always enjoyed Riwaka, and Rakau was another one from New Zealand that I really liked. But yeah, there you can see the lightning on the front of this one, because like we said, this is called Lightningphobia. You can see on the side of the can there is Totopia Brewery, the symbol there, plain silver top on the can there, and as I said, this is a half-litre can, this one. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. One thing that you will notice in Japan these days is that quite a few breweries are starting to sell their beers in half-litre cans as opposed to the 350s, which were quite common. So Totopia, West Coast, who's the other one? Yeah, Totopia, West Coast, and Vertere, I think, are the other one I've seen. There are others too, right enough. But yeah, quite a few of these breweries are doing half-litre cans now as opposed to the 350s, which is interesting because, you know, makes the beer a little bit more expensive. And the Japanese do like to drink smaller volumes, actually. They like to taste things, basically. So yeah, different attitudes to drinking in different countries, of course. But yeah, you can see that this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect from the style. So we've poured maybe about 80% of the beer out and into the glass now, maybe a little bit less. But you can see it's poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say, cream coloured head. This one, some medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, but generally speaking it gets foamier the further up that you go. And yeah, appearance-wise, this one looks very, very nice. I think It's a little bit, it seems like it's very bright on the viewfinder. I'm not sure about the lighting in this video, we'll just need to see about that. But yeah, to me, the naked eye, this one appears to be like a sort of mango juice colour. I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what they remind me of. But yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role as well, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. You don't often have to care about that with IPAs though. Now, one thing I will say about this beer, when it's only like 6.5% ABV, the level of haze on this one is pretty damn impressive. That's one of the soupier and gloopier New Englands that I've come across over the last wee while. And I don't think this one is oak cream or anything. I think they're just terming it triple dry hopped hazy IPA. In Liquor Shop Asahia, they had 3 or 4 different Totopia beers. I think it was 3 hazy IPAs, all about the same ABV. One of them was 7, the other 2 were 6.5, and then they had a sour IPA as well. So yeah, this is the one that kind of caught my eye mainly because of the name and the hops that are in it, because Riwaka I haven't had in a little while. But yeah, the level of haze in this one, the soupy gloopiness of this is pretty impressive. So remember, the haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. But for 6.5% ABV, I think that's pretty damn impressive when you look at it. So yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. The beer looks pretty much as you would expect for a New England hazy IPA. So I don't know if we really need to say too much more about the appearance of this one. I think we can go on and have a little look at the aroma then, because I'm very, very curious about this. Yeah, that smells very nice, but we wouldn't expect anything less of Totopia, to be honest. These guys are very, very solid, very good brewery in my experience, and this is pretty damn fresh as well. So, as I've said in many New England reviews, for me there are 6 different elements you can think about with this particular style. So you have the kind of farmhousey yeasty character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs in my experience. But then you've got the wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and you've also got the sweeter side of things as well. So for me, this beer actually finds its balance between being wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, and having a lot of barley malt element to it. It's quite balanced in that sense. If you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you're going to get the nice smoothness of the oats and a little bit of bitiness at the back of the nose. I think this one, just going by the aroma, I think this is using European malts. As I've explained on the videos before, for me, American oats are a little bit more kind of porridgey, whereas European oats are a bit more creamy. European wheat is a bit more wheaty and bitey, if you like. Well, obviously it's going to be wheaty. It's a little bit more kind of bitey, whereas the American wheat is a little bit smoother. So the smoothness in this, they could be using a bit of American wheat right enough, but you just have to be aware of that. When stuff is grown in different places, you've got different soil, different water, different chemistry basically, so that's going to give you different flavour elements. And of course Japan can really choose from Europe, America, or Australia and New Zealand and things to get their products for, because they're right in the middle. So yeah, it could be a variety of things in here. But the backbone of this beer then, you've got some lovely fresh white bready bread crust in this one. There's a little touch of like cracker, a little bit of woodiness. The bready character in this beer though is lovely. I mean, there's a little bit of a sweeter brown bread in there. You've got lots of fluffy white bread as well, which I think is great. Yeah, so a little bit of brown bread, fluffy white bread in there. You can smell a little bit of that more dense, wheaty white bread to this beer as well, which is quite nice. Like as I say, in the back of the nose, you get just that little touch of wheaty bitiness, but it's not too aggressive. It is actually quite smooth, but you just smell that little bit of bitiness in there. But yeah, there's some lovely oaty, creamy characteristics coming out of this beer. And yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice. Yeah, so lovely oaty, creamy characters in there. Nice little bit of Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotch. But not too much. The oaty creaminess in this one's quite nice. So as I've often said, the oatiness in these beers is usually a good indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the drier the oats are, the older the beer is, the creamier they are, the fresher the beer is. So this one is in pretty good condition. I don't know if it has. Totopia don't normally put a canned on date with these beers. But yeah, with this one, you get a lot of creaminess out of this. There is just a little touch of dryness in there as well, right enough. So I'm pretty sure this beer is pretty damn fresh, actually. But yeah, other than that, as I say, there's a little touch of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing with it. This is a single IPA, 6.5% ABV. It's been quite a while since I've reviewed one of these, right enough, because in Hong Kong, with the the tax and stuff on beer, and the just the import, the logistics prices, you tend to get more bang for your buck buying the stronger beers. So I don't review all that many pale ales and singles actually these days, just because of the bang for your buck argument. But yeah, this one for me, you can smell a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch and the biscuity sweetness in there, but it's not too sweet, and you wouldn't really expect that at this level of ABV, in all honesty. So yeah, on to the green side of things, the hoppy side of the beer. So for me, it's got a lovely bright green component to it. There's a little tiny bit of earthiness and herbal character there, which you're always going to get, but the green component really leans toward a nice bright, fresh, grassy sort of thing, which is probably going to be the Citra, and you've also got that nice floral aromaticity coming out of this one as well. So yeah, the green component of this one is pretty nice. So remember, with hopping in beer, you have three different kinds of hopping. You have early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mostly bitterness and a deeper, danker green component in your aroma. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place in the last half hour of the wort boil, assuming a 90-minute wort boil, of course, which is quite standard for IPAs, but that gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma though, and it'll give you a very bright green component in terms of flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's all about flavour and aroma, and again, it's going to give you a very bright green component in your nose and your flavour profile, of course. But yeah, with this one, with New England IPAs, they tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're softer and more juicy. West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they have that deeper, danker element to them as well. So yeah, you've got this lovely, soft, kind of juicy green component to this beer, which I think is very, very nice. But yeah, really kind of, I'd say, floral and grassy, quite standard for what you'd expect. But let's round off the aroma section with a wee look at the fruity side of things. So for me, fruity side of this beer, very soft, very tropical, which is kind of what you'd expect. The Nelson Sauvin takes a little bit of time to come out of the beer as well. But there's a good little bit of like juicy peach in this one for me, quite ripe peachy character. Lots of soft passion fruit as well. Big juicy mangoes. Apricot, some pineapple as well, and then yeah, there's quite a lot of like, I get quite a little bit of like lemon limey character from this one, which is going to be from the Citra. So the tropical fruits are coming mainly from the Citra and the Riwaka, but you can get that gooseberry, white green grapey sort of thing that you'd expect of Nelson Sauvin in this beer. So yeah, it's kind of showing you everything that you everything that you might expect this beer, in all honesty. But it smells very, very nice. I'm guessing this is going to be another very solid effort from Totopia. But yeah, when you sugar the beer up, you start to get a little bit more of that lemon limey note. You start to get a little bit more of the wheaty bitiness and things, and the green component as well. So yeah, in all honesty, aroma wise, this one is very, very nice. So yeah, take a bit of time to enjoy that, but I think it is about time that we get stuck into this beer and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is Lightningphobia, a 6.5% New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Totopia Brewery in Nagakuta, near Nagoya in Aichi here in Japan. Let's get stuck in. Slanje, skål, cheers, kampai. Ooh, that's very nice. As I say, it's been a while since I've done a single New England IPA, but this one It has a good mouth. One of the things I always like about the doubles and the triples is just the thickness of the mouthfeel. I like very thick, hazy IPAs. And yeah, this one though, I think is delivers on that big, thick mouthfeel. I'd be very curious to see Totopia do like some doubles and triple IPAs and things like that. That would be very interesting to see from them. But yeah, this one is very, very good for a single IPA. I think this is really, really nicely done. So big thumbs up to Totopia once again. I'm not surprised because I know how good these guys are, but I am impressed at how well they can do the single IPAs actually. It does remind me of some of the American ones that I had last summer, and I was impressed with the mouthfeel from them. So yeah, gives you everything you'd want. I'm thinking with this one, it's a bit more, it is a little bit more kind of wheaty leaning in the flavour than I thought it was going to be from the aroma, in all honesty. I'm quite surprised about that. So there's a bit more wheaty character to this one, a bit more of the barley malt as well, which is quite interesting. Let me just see what the sedimenty side of this is like. But yeah, first impression is it's a wee bit more dry actually than I thought it was going to be from the aroma, but still very, very nice beer. So let's just break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. Yeah, that's good. That is good. So yeah, for me, the fruit, the whole the vibe of this beer is really, really nice. It's very soft, very easy to drink almost. So let's start off on the middle third of the palate then, as we always do. Backbone of the beer, you've got that fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust. As you move further forward, you've got a little touch of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of note in the beer. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker further forward on that. Maybe a little bit of woodiness as well actually. And then yeah, you've got another layer on top of that of like a Jacob's cream cracker. Then it's all about the bread. So for me, there's a little layer of like a wholemeal brown bread in there. Then on top of that, you've got a fluffier white bread, which is actually quite dense and slightly dry. But then above all of that, you've got an even denser, wheaty note coming out of this one. Yeah, you've got an even denser like white bready note coming out of this one. As I say, it's wheaty. So further back on that middle third of your palate, you can feel it's got a little bit of bitiness, but as you come further forward, it's actually got quite a little bit of smoothness to it as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, on top of the wheaty, the more dense wheaty bready layer, then you've also got the oaty character to this beer. So down the middle line of your tongue, you've got a wee bit more of a yeah, you have a little bit more of a, how would you say, like an oaty. You can feel that sort of oaty creaminess going down the middle line of your palate there. But then as you move further out toward the edges of your tongue, it's just got that little bit more of a dryness to it, which I think is quite nice as well. So you get that little bit of dryness there, and I think further into the aftertaste, this beer, generally speaking, does get that little bit drier. But in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's just a little touch of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type flavour, and then maybe a wee bit of biscuit around the edge of that. So yeah, these are all things that you these are all things that you would kind of expect of this beer style. But that's the middle third of your palate then. So let's go to the back third of your palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. And then yeah, generally speaking, sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, and more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So yeah, Border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build up in there again, wee bit of brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more dense, like bitey, wheaty white bread on top of that. But the base of the back third of your palate, yeah, you've got the bread crust again, which is a little bit drier, the crackery layer, which is a bit drier. The wholemeal brown bread is there, and that layer is a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. The white bread above that, again, that's a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. Then you've got the wheaty, the more dense wheaty characters above that. Yeah, that sort of wheaty note on the back 30 parts. I say it has that little bit more bitiness to it, but the thing is, into the aftertaste, the wheat really smoothens out, and this beer, it sort of smoothens out and gives you that wee bit more dryness, which is quite interesting. But above everything else on that back third of the palate, you start to get the yeasty side of this beer. So let's have a wee look at that. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me is quite, in the middle you get that sweeter brown bready sort of thing. So sweet brown bread in the middle, a more soft white bready character around the edge, and then yeah, at the very edge of it you get this more like slightly toasty, dry, bread crusty sort of note coming out of it. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is quite interesting. So that gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah. So in terms of the back 30 palate, you could definitely feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward, it kind of condenses down and squashes together in that middle third of your palate. So yeah, I like that about this one for sure. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice, in terms of the back corners of your palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. It's more earthy than I would have thought actually, but as you move further forward, you get a little bit of that herbal character, but you can feel as you move further forward, it's got a little bit of an almost kind of pine resiny note to it, and I think that might be Riwaka. If I remember right, Riwaka can give you that little bit of piney resin, even though it's like lower in its alpha acid, but you can feel it feels like it's pellets in this one. You do have a little bit of that kind of pellety freshness in this one, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, definitely not cryo in this beer, otherwise the green component would be a lot sort of smoother. But yeah, the sort of, you do get that little bit more of a kind of floral aromatic spice on the front corners of the tongue, then round the front curve of your palate, it's softer and more grassy and zesty. And I think the grassiness in this beer is most likely to come from the presence of citra rather than anything else. But yeah, interesting stuff. So let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer to round off the tasting. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer then, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and then a little bit of the wheaty character sitting on the top there. But then yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, you can feel the bread crust is in there, quite a lot of cracker actually in this one. Then yeah, the brown bread, the white bread, and then the more dense wheat. And the wheat's actually a little bit drier, but still very smooth on that front third of your palate. But then above all of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at the fruity side of this beer then. So yeah, fruity side of this beer for me, it's the fruity side for me, I'd say really leans more toward that tropical side of things, but with the hops in here, that's kind of what you'd expect. So at the back of that front third of your palate, I think there's a little touch of grapefruit in there. You can feel that more intense grapefruit lingering into the aftertaste. But yeah, as you move further forward, you've got that sharper peach, juicy mango for sure, softer passion fruit, a little bit of apricot in this one as well. Not so much mango actually, which is kind of surprising considering the presence of citra. Maybe in the beginning, yeah, but the mango kind of fades away a little bit. I'd say, yeah, peach, passion fruit, apricot, pineapple. I'd say about, yeah, a little bit of mango in the beginning, in fairness. Then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you can feel on the base, you've got the Nelson Sauvin in there. And then, yeah, you have, on top of that, you have a little bit of a, as you reach the front tip of your tongue, you've got more of a kind of oily, zesty, sort of limey character out of this one. So yeah, that oily, limey character is very nice in this beer. So yeah, the limey notes I think are most likely to come from the citra rather than anything else. But yeah, it does give you that wee bit of zestiness into the aftertaste, which I do like. So on the on the mouthfeel side of things with this one, then I think we said everything we need to about the flavour. For me, this beer is mid-bodied, right in the middle of the spectrum, maybe pushing toward the top end of mid-bodied, but the level of thickness you get in this beer, especially for a single IPA, I think is pretty impressive. Carbonation is very smooth. I don't know if I'd describe this beer as being overly creamy, in all honesty. It's actually a slightly drier New England IPA for me when I think about it. IBU wise, I think this is a fairly standard 30 IBUs, but you do get a bit more of that kind of sort of floral, spicy kind of note out of this one. I'm pretty sure that'll be because of the use of T90 pellets. But yeah, the malt base, as we said, underneath it's a bit drier, smoother in the middle, and a wee bit kind of softer and creamier on top. A little touch of sweetness, but not overly much. And then yeah, the fruity side of this one, I think the fruity side of this beer is yeah, mainly tropical, but it does have a wee bit of, you know, more citrusy punch to it, a bit of grapefruit and a bit of a more lemony, limey character to it as well. So overall, I think this one goes together really, really nicely, and it gets a big, big thumbs up from me. Yeah, quite an interesting single IPA, this one. Like I say, a bit drier and a bit thicker than a number of the other ones I've come across in recent times. But yeah, Totopia like to play with their recipes, and they are very, very good at what they do, so definitely worth trying some of their beer. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This has been really interesting to try. This one was the Lightningphobia, a 6.5% New England Hazy IPA with Citra, Nelson Sauvin and Riwaka in it, from Totopia Brewery in Nagakuta, near Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture here in Japan. Always nice to return to these guys, and I think this was a nice place to kick off our new Japanese mini-series that we're working on for you just now. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Totopia's social media, do check out Liquor Shop Asahiya in Osaka here as well, and we will no doubt return to Totopia at some point in the fairly near future. Until the next time, Slanja, Skål, cheers, Kampai, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.